Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. Today I would like to talk about a game that I played as a kid a long time ago and recently purchased a copy of because it meant something to me as a kid and I actually wanted to own it. This is a game that I played as a kid. As you know, growing up in the 90s, Dragon Ball was getting really popular in America. I think it was around the summer of 1999 I actually found the game online and had my first experience with the world of emulation. Now, this game originally came out in 1996, and it was a Japanese exclusive for the Super Famicom. So it never actually released outside of Japan in the States or Europe or anything like that. So the only way to really play this if you lived outside of Japan was to go the emulation route. And something that was really cool was at the time there was a pretty big community around games that never left their home regions, and there were people that were making fan translations, and that's how I first experienced the game. Now, it's a little bit different than most Dragon Ball games. You think Dragon Ball, you think explosive action combat, or maybe something like an RPG, like the Legacy of Goku games. This game is actually more of like a visual novel, and it's kind of strange how they put the game together because it's also kind of a Japanese RPG at the same time. So you'll go through the game as Goku, and it starts at the very beginning of original Dragon Ball. Even though it says it's Dragon Ball Z, I think that was just more of a branding thing because Dragon Ball Z was the anime that was current and it was the most popular thing at the time. So they just kind of branded the series as Dragon Ball Z. But it starts at the very beginning, Goku meeting Bulma. You travel through the first collection of the Dragon Balls, all that stuff. Eventually you train with Master Roshi. The game goes all the way through up until the first battle with King Piccolo and ends on a cliffhanger. And they actually did release a sequel for this that picks up after that, but that's something we'll talk about in another video someday. We're going to keep talking about this one for right now. That's right, today we're diving into Dragon Ball Z Super Gokuden Tatsugeki-hen for the Super Famicom. This is not your average Dragon Ball Z game. It's part RPG, part visual novel, part, educational trivia simulator? Yeah, this one's going to be interesting. Let's get started. The place to start with this is to talk a little bit about the developer of this game, Tosei Software. Often regarded as a ghost developer, they've built a reputation for being behind the scenes in the video game industry. They mostly do stuff in the background for bigger companies like Nintendo or Bandai, and kind of just ghost write code for games, design engines, assets, that sort of thing. They usually don't end up getting credited in the credits for the games they've worked on, and I don't really think that that is something that really matters to the company. I don't think they really care about getting the reputation out there. They're more of just kind of like a place that people go to when they need supplemental work done. Tosei's involvement with this title was pretty crucial as well, as they were responsible for much of the game's technical aspects, including the game's engine and programming. While Bandai was the publisher, the franchise's official branding was firmly attached to the game. Tosei's behind-the-scenes work helped bring the RPG to life. Though most Dragon Ball games have settled into two categories, usually they're either fighting games or action-adventure RPGs. You had the Super Gokuden series, which gave us traditional 2D fighting mechanics. You had games like Dragon Ball Z, Gekishin, Frieza, and Dragon Ball The Legendary Super Warriors, which leaned more into the strategy and the RPG mechanics. And of course, there was also Dragon Ball Z Gaiden, Saiyajin Zenmu Setsu Kaikaku, which I know I'm definitely butchering that one, which is a whole other mess I'll probably never cover in a video, as it's one of the least liked Dragon Ball games of all time. But amidst all this action, Super Gokuden came along and said, hey, what if instead of fighting, we just told the story? And not just any part of the story, we're going to go back to the very beginning. Before Radix, before Vegeta, before Namek, we're talking OG Dragon Ball. So what is this game? Well, imagine a cross between a choose-your-own-adventure book, a turn-based JRPG, and a quick-time event simulator. You follow Goku's journey from the very first episode of Dragon Ball, and it goes up through his major battles with most of his antagonists, ending at the climax with the King Piccolo saga. Instead of traditional gameplay, the game presents you with dialogue choices, quick-time events, and turn-based combat. It's a mix of a story-driven adventure and also light RPG elements, but with a combat system that, well, we'll get to that. Now, I gotta admit, this game looks really fantastic. The character sprites are sharp, the cutscenes use a really cool manga-like style, and everything is packed with Dragon Ball charm. It really captures that 16-bit Toriyama aesthetic, and that's not an easy thing to do. And the game actually follows the source material pretty close. We see Goku meeting Bulma for the first time, training with Master Roshi, competing in the martial arts tournament, eventually facing off against King Piccolo. There's plenty of moments captured perfectly in the 16-bit form here, and it's honestly pretty charming. This is one of the most faithful retellings of early Dragon Ball we've really ever gotten in video game form, but as cool as that is, it does come with the cost. This is one of the most faithful retellings ever, and it's kind of sad to say that we really didn't get too much original Dragon Ball content after this until Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure, like way later, like on the GBA. But let's talk about gameplay, or should I say homework, because a big chunk of this game is reading and answering questions. Now I expect you'll have a pretty good knowledge of the series if you're seeking out an obscure import game like this one. Yeah, you're gonna need it. Super Gokuden is actually a lot of quizzes. It quizzes you on your Dragon Ball knowledge, you get dialogue choices throughout the game, and if you pick the right ones, you earn extra experience points or level up Goku's health or his battle power. You ever wanted to study for a Dragon Ball test? No? Well, too bad. Super Gokuden wants you to make sure you're playing plenty of knowledge of the series. So the combat, you'd expect a Dragon Ball game to have fast, action-packed fights, right? Well, Super Gokuden says, what if Goku had to think really, really hard before throwing a punch? Battles in this game are part turn-based RPG, part reaction-based QTEs. You select an attack, and if you press the right combination at the right time, Goku actually lands his move. You mess up, Goku gets smacked across the screen like a ragdoll. Now, the way the combat works in this game is kind of different. You have punch and kick mapped to two of your face buttons, and then you also have a block mapped to one of the other ones. And then your two R and L buttons are used to build up your power, which is kind of like your ki. I guess you could say it's kind of like the equivalent to your like mana in a Final Fantasy game. Now you need to build that up to be able to use your special attacks. So for your special attacks, you'll use the face button and then one of the arrows like up, down, left, or right. And depending on what you assign to those, you can use things like the power pole, you can use things like the Kamehameha. Goku has his rock, paper, scissors fist attack. It's pretty interesting. The same kind of goes for the dodging. Like one of your guard buttons, you have inputs, like you can use the up, down, left, right as well. So like you could do one that does like a block multi-attack. So say, for instance, you're fighting Yamcha early in the series. He has his Wolf Fang fist combo. That would be considered a multi-attack. So you would have to make sure that you put the input in for a multi-guard. Because if you do the single guard, he'll go through and you'll get decked and go flying across the screen. But anyways, so the story goes along. As I said before, it goes all the way from the Pilaf arc up to the King Piccolo arc. And you kind of just make the decisions, and sometimes the things that you say, if they're not what matches the source material, it can actually branch the story off, and you'll get maybe a cutscene that doesn't really match what originally happened, which is kind of cool. Like Goku can end up fighting somebody different at the World Martial Arts Tournament. Stuff like that. Little changes here and there. Now, the music in this game is really cool. I think they did a really good job at catching the Dragon Ball spirit and the 16-bit MDI. My only concerns are that as you're battling, it's only one battle theme, and it loops and loops and loops, and it's not a very long song, so it can kind of get on your nerves over time. But I mean, that's kind of a minor complaint. It's still a really good score. I appreciate what they were trying to go for. I just wish there was a little bit more variety in the tracks. So should you play Super Gokuden? Well, if you're a hardcore Dragon Ball fan and want to experience one of the most unique takes on the story, sure. But if you're looking for a fast-paced, action-packed Dragon Ball Z game, you're probably better off playing one of the Budokai games or Kakarot. So that's Super Dragon Ball Tatsugeki-hen, a weird, unique, and kinda slow Dragon Ball game that's definitely worth checking out if you're into the franchise. But hey, at least it's not Dragon Ball Z sagas, it's the small victories in life. Thanks for joining me, and until next time!